Have you ever felt like life was slipping through your fingers? One missed opportunity, one wrong turn at a time? Maybe you've struggled with debt that keeps piling up, or felt stuck in a career that seems to drain your soul instead of fulfilling it. If so, you're not alone. So many of us spend years searching for something deeper, only to end up feeling more lost. But what if those struggles were actually the stepping stones to a life of abundance and purpose? In this video, we're diving into the story of a young man who found himself buried under financial stress and uncertainty, only to discover a path of transformation through spirituality and self-awareness. His journey will show you how to shift your mindset, break free from the chains of doubt, and embrace the wisdom that leads to true prosperity, both in wealth and in spirit. We'll explore how the ancient teachings of Buddhism, inspired by the wisdom of the Buddha, can help us overcome life's biggest obstacles. From understanding the emotional weight of debt to learning the art of balance in a world full of distractions, this story isn't just about him, it's about you too. Stick around, because what you'll learn here isn't your average self-help advice. It's a blend of timeless spiritual insights and practical steps that anyone can follow. Whether you're seeking clarity, financial freedom, or simply a way to feel more connected to your purpose, you're about to discover tools that can reshape your life. Now, let's take the first step together. It starts with a feeling that sneaks up on you: loneliness. You're surrounded by people, yet somehow you feel utterly alone. This young man in his 20s knows this feeling all too well. Living at home should bring comfort, right? But for him, it's a daily reminder of unfulfilled dreams and strained relationships. Family dinners turn into tense silences, and the once familiar space now feels suffocating. Loneliness isn't just about being alone, it's about feeling unseen. Depression doesn't announce itself with a big neon sign. It creeps in subtly. Maybe it's the lack of motivation to get out of bed, or the constant mental tug of war over what went wrong. For someone juggling debt and job hopping, it's easy to fall into a spiral of self-doubt. It's as if every wrong turn is written on a scoreboard, each tally a reminder that life isn't unfolding as planned. Let's talk about stress spending, something many of us might relate to. For this man, shopping became a coping mechanism, a fleeting moment of control in a world that felt out of control. That new gadget, trendy clothes, or expensive dinner brought joy for a moment, only to leave him deeper in debt. It's a trap, isn't it? What feels like relief quickly becomes another source of stress, and the cycle continues. At home, the atmosphere is heavy with unspoken tension. His parents, perhaps out of concern, ask too many questions he doesn't have answers to. Conversations that once felt natural now feel like interrogations. He avoids them, preferring solitude over arguments. It's not rebellion, it's a desperate attempt to protect the fragile pieces of his self-esteem. And the jobs. Oh, the jobs. Every switch promised something better, but the reality was different. He was either underqualified, uninterested, or overwhelmed. Purpose seemed like a myth, something reserved for people who had their lives together. He often wondered if he'd ever find work that didn't drain his spirit or make him feel like just another cog in the machine. Loneliness isn't just an emotional state, it affects the body too. Lack of social connection can disrupt sleep, weaken the immune system, and even shorten life expectancy. He noticed the physical toll, the frequent colds, constant fatigue, and the dark circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep could fix. Emotional struggles rarely stay confined to the mind. They spread, weaving themselves into every aspect of life. But here's the thing, rock bottom has a way of forcing us to look up. Though he didn't know it yet, his loneliness, depression, and strained relationships were pointing him towards something greater. When the noise of the world becomes too much, the soul begins to whisper. And sometimes, it's that whisper that leads us to seek answers in unexpected places, like spirituality. When life feels like it's crumbling around you, the instinct is to escape. For this man, the idea of leaving everything behind lingered in his mind like an unanswered question. But was it running away or running towards something? In Buddhism, there's a concept called shuke, which means leaving home. Not just the physical home, but the emotional and mental baggage that weighs us down. It's not about abandoning responsibility. It's about rediscovering yourself. Think of Shuki as a reset button, but not the kind that wipes everything clean. It's more like stepping away to gain perspective. For him, it wasn't about turning his back on family or career, it was about turning inward. He realized that the chaos in his external world was a mirror of his inner turmoil. If he wanted peace, he'd have to confront the storm within. Now, this isn't an easy path. Modern life doesn't exactly roll out a red carpet for introspection. People often confuse spiritual journeys with escapism. But Shuki isn't about evasion, it's about transformation. It's like climbing a mountain. Each step is hard, but the view from the top changes you forever. And that's what he wanted. Not to flee from his struggles, but to find a higher purpose through them. One day, he stumbled upon a story of the Buddha himself. Before enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama left his royal life to seek the truth. The parallels struck a chord. The Buddha didn't leave because he was weak. He left because he sought something greater. This young man realized that maybe his feelings of being lost weren't a curse, but a calling to explore a deeper connection to life. As he researched more, he found practical ways to incorporate this mindset without packing up his belongings and heading to a monastery. Meditation became a daily ritual, not as an escape, but as a tool to observe his thoughts without judgment. Journaling helped him process his feelings, turning confusion into clarity. These small steps made him feel like he was finally reclaiming control, not of the chaos, but of how he responded to it. Of course, doubt lingered. What would his family say if he started speaking about spirituality? What would his friends think if he suddenly prioritized inner growth over career advancement? But here's the beauty of Shuki. It's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about aligning your life with your soul's truth. And for him, the whispers of his soul were becoming impossible to ignore. Spirituality isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. For some, it's about chanting in temples. For others, it's quiet moments of reflection in nature. As he explored, he realized that his path didn't need to look like anyone else's. Shuki wasn't a destination. It was a journey of self-discovery. And just as he began to feel the first sparks of clarity, another challenge awaited: how to support this journey financially. Spiritual growth is priceless, or so it seems. But as this young man began exploring the idea of deeper spiritual training, he discovered an unexpected barrier: money. Many temples, even those steeped in ancient traditions, require prospective trainees to save a specific amount before starting their journey. It felt counterintuitive at first. How could something as profound as enlightenment have a price tag? Yet the reasoning behind it began to unfold. Think of it this way: commitment requires investment. Saving for training wasn't just about gathering funds, it was a practice in discipline. Every dollar set aside was a step closer to proving to himself that he was serious about this path. The process mirrored the teachings themselves: patience, mindfulness, and detachment from immediate gratification. It wasn't about the money, it was about what the act of saving represented. Temples have their own realities to contend with. Supporting trainees, providing food, shelter, and guidance requires resources. Without these contributions, the system would falter under financial strain. For this young man, understanding this shifted his perspective. It wasn't just an arbitrary fee. It was a way to ensure that the space remained sacred and sustainable, not just for him, but for others who would come after. To meet this financial requirement, he had to get creative. Gone were the days of stress spending. Now, every expense had to align with his goals. He set up a modest budget, cutting back on luxuries and focusing on what truly mattered. He even picked up a part-time job, not out of desperation, but as a way to honor the process. Each paycheck became a symbol of his growing commitment. Interestingly, the act of saving itself became a form of spiritual practice. It taught him to let go of attachment, not just to material things, but to the false belief that spirituality should come without effort. Buddhism often speaks of balance, and here it was, staring him in the face. To receive the teachings, he had to first give his time, his energy, and yes, his money. What surprised him most was how empowering this journey felt. Far from being a burden, saving for training gave him a sense of purpose. It transformed his relationship with money, turning it from a source of stress into a tool for growth. Abundance, he realized, wasn't about having more. It was about aligning his resources with his values. Still, the financial path wasn't without its challenges. As he inched closer to his goal, doubts crept in. Would it be worth it? Was he chasing an illusion? But these questions didn't deter him. They deepened his resolve. The real question wasn't about the money, it was about his willingness to invest in himself. And just as he reached the threshold, he discovered something unexpected. The financial realities of monastic life were even more complex than he'd imagined. When people picture monastic life, they often imagine serene temples, flowing robes, and an existence free from the burdens of everyday finances. But the reality is far more nuanced. For this young man, stepping into a monastery revealed an unexpected truth. Even spiritual spaces are deeply connected to the material world. Monasteries face the same financial challenges as any organization. They need resources to sustain their practices and serve their communities. One surprising discovery was the cost of basic necessities. Food, maintenance, and utilities aren't magically provided. They're funded through donations and, in some cases, contributions from the monks themselves. It's a delicate balance. How can a space devoted to spiritual enlightenment also navigate the practicalities of wealth management? This duality taught him an important lesson. Spirituality doesn't reject material needs. It integrates them wisely. He also learned about the importance of generosity, or dana, in Buddhist tradition. Monks rely on the goodwill of the community for their sustenance, and in return, they offer guidance and teachings. But in modern times, this reciprocity has become strained. With fewer people engaging in temple life or offering support, the financial burden on monastic spaces has grown. It's not just about survival. It's about preserving a space where spirituality can thrive. This young man saw how monks navigated these challenges with grace. They practiced extreme mindfulness with resources, stretching every donation to its fullest potential. Meals were simple but nourishing, accommodations modest yet sufficient. These choices reflected a deep respect for abundance. Not the abundance of excess, but the abundance found in gratitude and careful stewardship. Yet, even within the temple walls, financial tension was palpable. Some temples had to adapt by hosting workshops, selling handmade goods, or opening their doors to tourists. While these efforts helped, they also raised questions about balance. Could a temple remain a sacred space while engaging in commercial activities? For him, it was a reminder that prosperity is a dynamic concept, one that requires constant recalibration. The monk's approach to wealth left a lasting impression. It wasn't about accumulating riches or striving for more. Instead, it was about aligning resources with purpose. They showed him that money, when used mindfully, becomes a tool for spiritual growth rather than a source of attachment. This shift in perspective was profound, sparking a deep sense of respect for the harmony between material and spiritual worlds. Still, one question lingered in his mind. What happens to monks who leave this structured life? If navigating financial realities within the monastery is challenging, re-entering the secular world without practical skills or savings must be even harder. The answer to this question would reveal yet another layer of complexity in the journey of spiritual seekers. Leaving the monastery can feel like stepping into an entirely different universe. For former monks, the transition back to secular life often comes with challenges that many don't anticipate. Imagine spending years in an environment where silence, simplicity, and spiritual reflection are the norm, only to return to a world buzzing with deadlines, social expectations, and financial pressures. For many, it's overwhelming. One of the biggest hurdles is the lack of practical skills. While monastic training offers profound wisdom and discipline, it doesn't always equip individuals with the tools needed for conventional jobs. This young man observed how some former monks struggled to find work, facing rejection because their resumes didn't fit the mold. Employers valued technical expertise, but the spiritual mastery these individuals carried often went unnoticed. Social reintegration isn't easy either. Former monks can feel alienated, as if they don't quite belong in the fast-paced world they left behind. Conversations that once revolved around mindfulness and meditation now center on office gossip or the latest gadgets. For those deeply attuned to spirituality, this shift can feel isolating, making it hard to connect with others. Finances add another layer of difficulty. Without savings or a steady income, many former monks find themselves financially vulnerable. While they've mastered the art of living simply, society demands more. Rent, bills, and unexpected expenses don't disappear just because someone led a humble life. Some return to their families for support, but this can strain relationships, especially if expectations aren't aligned. But here's the silver lining. The wisdom they gained doesn't go to waste. Many former monks find unique ways to contribute to society, blending their spiritual teachings with modern needs. For instance, some become meditation instructors, counselors, or motivational speakers, using their experiences to guide others. Their journey is a testament to resilience, showing that the lessons of the monastery can thrive even in the secular world. For this young man, hearing these stories was both inspiring and cautionary. They highlighted the importance of balance, not just in spiritual training, but in preparing for life beyond it. He realized that while the pursuit of enlightenment is noble, it's equally important to remain grounded. The world outside the temple walls still operates on practicalities, and navigating that requires both heart and strategy. As he reflected on these challenges, another thought emerged. What role should temples play in bridging this gap? Could they offer better support to those who leave? This question opened a door to explore the evolving role of temples in society, not just as spiritual havens, but as pillars of holistic growth. Temples have long stood as symbols of peace and refuge, offering sanctuary to those overwhelmed by the demands of life. For centuries, they were more than just spiritual centers. They were places where people found guidance, solace, and community. This young man began to see temples as beacons of hope, especially for those seeking clarity in a chaotic world. But in modern society, their role has become more complex. In the past, temples served as the heart of their communities. They provided not only spiritual nourishment, but also practical support: food for the hungry, shelter for the displaced, and wisdom for the lost. These sacred spaces bridge the gap between the material and spiritual worlds, reminding people that prosperity wasn't just about wealth. It was about well-being in every sense. However, as society became more individualistic, the connection between people and temples began to weaken. Fewer people sought refuge within temple walls, turning instead to modern solutions like therapy or self-help programs. While these are valuable, they lack the communal and spiritual depth that temples offer. This shift left temples grappling with how to stay relevant while remaining true to their purpose. For this young man, the struggle of temples felt deeply personal. He had experienced their power firsthand, a sense of calm that couldn't be found in the noise of daily life. Yet, he also saw their challenges: declining financial support, shrinking communities, and the pressure to adapt to a fast-changing world. Could temples maintain their sacredness while evolving to meet modern needs? Some temples have embraced change, hosting workshops, yoga classes, and mindfulness retreats to attract younger generations. While these efforts have helped, they've also sparked debate. Traditionalists argue that such activities dilute the spiritual essence of temples, while progressives see them as necessary adaptations. This tension reflects the broader challenge of balancing tradition with modernity, a challenge that temples and individuals alike must face. Despite these struggles, temples continue to inspire. They remind us of the value of slowing down, of stepping away from the pursuit of wealth to cultivate inner abundance. They offer lessons that resonate even in today's world: the importance of community, the power of rituals, and the beauty of mindfulness. For this young man, temples became a metaphor for his own journey, seeking balance between his spiritual aspirations and worldly responsibilities. As he contemplated the role of temples, another question arose: how does Buddhism itself adapt across cultures? Could the lessons he learned in his own spiritual journey resonate in societies with different traditions? This curiosity set the stage for him to explore the cultural differences in Buddhism and their impact on spiritual practice. Buddhism is a philosophy of profound simplicity, yet its expressions vary greatly across cultures. As this young man delved deeper into his journey, he became fascinated by how different regions embrace the teachings of the Buddha. In Southeast Asia, for instance, young monks are revered. Their shaved heads and saffron robes symbolize devotion, and their presence commands respect. But he noticed something else: a cultural nuance that shaped how monastic life was perceived. In many Southeast Asian countries, entering the monastery is a rite of passage. It's common for young men to spend a few months or years as monks before returning to their regular lives. This temporary commitment is seen as a way to cultivate discipline, gain wisdom, and honor family traditions. For them, monastic life isn't necessarily a lifetime calling, it's a chapter in their personal growth. This perspective stood in stark contrast to the permanence often associated with Buddhist practice in other regions. In Japan, for example, monks who leave the monastery can face judgment or be seen as abandoning their path. The cultural expectations are different, shaping not only how monks live, but also how they transition back into society. This young man realized that spirituality isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. It's deeply rooted in cultural context. These differences also extended to the role of temples in everyday life. In Thailand, temples are bustling hubs of activity, serving as schools, event venues, and community centers. By contrast, temples in the West often serve a more contemplative purpose, offering spaces for meditation and self-reflection. Both approaches are valid, but they highlight the adaptability of Buddhist teachings across different societies. For this young man, these cultural variations were eye-opening. They showed him that the essence of Buddhism, seeking inner peace and understanding, remains universal, even if the outward practices differ. He began to see himself as part of a global tapestry of seekers, each contributing to the richness of the tradition in their own way. But cultural differences also posed challenges. Monks who moved between countries sometimes struggled to reconcile differing expectations. A monk revered in Myanmar might find themselves a curiosity in Europe, where Buddhism is less ingrained in daily life. This tension underscored the need for adaptability, not just for temples, but for individuals navigating their spiritual paths. As this young man reflected on these cultural insights, a thought lingered. Could temples everywhere evolve to bridge the gap between tradition and modernity? How could they remain sanctuaries of spiritual growth while addressing the practical and cultural needs of their communities? These questions brought him back to the core issue of sustainability and the future of spiritual spaces. Sustainability is often a word we associate with the environment. But for spiritual spaces, it's just as vital. Temples, monasteries, and similar sanctuaries have always relied on a delicate balance between tradition and adaptation. For this young man, the question of sustainability became deeply personal, as he witnessed how these spaces struggled to stay afloat in a modern world. One of the biggest challenges is financial stability. Historically, temples relied on the generosity of their communities. Donations of money, food, and labor helped keep their doors open. But as fewer people engage in traditional practices, this support has dwindled. Without a consistent income, many spiritual spaces face hard choices: reduce their services, commercialize, or even close their doors. To survive, some temples have embraced creativity. They've introduced programs like meditation retreats, yoga classes, and cultural workshops to generate income. While these efforts have been successful, they also raise important questions. Can a spiritual space maintain its sacredness while becoming more business-oriented? For some, it's a necessary compromise. For others, it feels like losing touch with their roots. This young man saw firsthand how innovation could complement tradition. One temple hosted an event blending Buddhist teachings with modern self-help principles, drawing in a younger, curious crowd. The event wasn't just a fundraiser, it was a bridge connecting ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges. For him, this approach embodied abundance, not just in wealth, but in creativity and impact. Another challenge is the physical upkeep of spiritual spaces. Many temples are centuries old, requiring constant maintenance to preserve their beauty and functionality. Renovations are expensive, and without steady funding, these projects often get postponed. Yet these spaces are more than buildings. They're symbols of resilience and hope, making their preservation essential. As this young man reflected on these issues, he realized sustainability wasn't just about money. It was about community. Temples thrive when people feel connected to them, when they see these spaces as integral to their lives. This sense of belonging fosters prosperity, not just financial, but emotional and spiritual. A temple isn't just a structure, It's a living, breathing part of its community. But sustainability also requires forward thinking. How can spiritual spaces adapt to serve the next generation while staying true to their essence? For this young man, this question became a call to action, not just for temples, but for himself. After all, the lessons of sustainability aren't confined to temples. They're lessons for life itself, opening the door to endless possibilities. So, here's the big question. What's stopping you from turning your struggles into stepping stones? The journey from debt, stress, and uncertainty to purpose, prosperity, and abundance isn't just for someone else. It's for you too. This young man's story is a reminder that even the darkest moments can lead to profound transformation if we're willing to reflect, adapt, and take that first courageous step. Think about the lessons we've explored, the value of balancing practicality with spirituality, the importance of finding a community that uplifts you, and the realization that wealth isn't just about money. It's about living a life aligned with your purpose. Which one resonates with you the most? And how will you begin to apply it in your life today? Transformation starts with action, and that action could be as simple as reflecting on your own challenges and asking, what are they teaching me? Or maybe it's reaching out to someone for guidance, or taking a moment to reconnect with practices that ground you, like meditation or journaling. If this video sparked even the tiniest bit of hope or clarity for you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need these insights, and let's keep this conversation going. Comment below with your thoughts or your own journey. We'd love to hear from you. And hey, if you want to keep exploring topics like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Together, we'll continue uncovering the tools and wisdom to create a life of abundance, wealth, and meaning. Remember, every step counts, and this is just the beginning of your story. You've got this.